Good morning, everyone. Just reached the right temperature and the heater went off. It rained yesterday, but not too bad. We need a good, solid, strong rain, and we're just not getting it. It rained, but not enough to wash away the black. It's diluted it some of the areas. And it's raining right now, sprinkling. So keep it up. We may get something out of this. It's going just slightly above us. We're getting just little bits of it. It's a big front going across the top. But we're just not getting it here. I set this up like this when I'm up front working on the camera. And then when I sit back, it's like, that's too much space. Okay. I got to get in the habit of just setting it up and then sitting back and looking. But I don't do that because I'm up close. I don't have my glasses on. I can put my glasses on, my cheaters, and see, because that's all these are. These are just reading glasses. I don't need anything for far away. I've had LASIK, and I highly recommend it if your eyes are eligible for it. I am not drinking tea today. This is just a flavored water mix, but I'm using my tea bottles. I'm frugal. Okay. The subject for today is never stop learning. Obviously, we're told in the Bible to read the Bible. So you should be doing that as a minimum. But don't stop at the Bible. Too many times we're sitting here, I don't have anything to use as a phone, but we're just sitting here looking at our phones, doing this type of stuff, and we're reading 1- and 2-sentence statements, maybe a paragraph or two, but you're not going to hold anybody for a long read on the phone. It's just too hard to read. So get a book. There are libraries out there. There are booksellers. If you don't want to read a book, get I don't know what they have now, but we had Kindles. And they got to, and they didn't work well initially when they came out because they didn't work in the bright sun. But they've got them now to where you can read it just as well as you can a book. So if you want digital versions of them, just get digital versions, put them on your reader, whatever it is. If you have a tablet, you can read on a tablet, at least it's book size. Phones are the phones are smart, it's dumbing people down. Not good. We're getting people sucked into it, so when they turn them off, all these people are going to be walking into walls and posts because they're not going to know what to do. Keep reading. The more you read, the more you know about God first, other people second. You know what you get when you don't read and you don't learn about people? Bigotry, racism, class division, all the things that the devil loves. So he doesn't want you to read. They're all things that divide us. The early church got caught up in this. Even the church leaders of Jesus' time. But back then, they didn't have public education, standard education to teach people to read and write. The early disciples couldn't read and write. They may have learned later on, or they may have gotten enough out of it so that they could then dictate to somebody else. So it's quite possible the early Gospels were dictated. Now, Matthew probably could speak. He's a physician. Peter sometimes had language problems. Now, I know they didn't speak English, but if you translate bad Aramaic to bad English, you get a literal translation of bad language. But anyhow, the early church didn't know. Jesus called them whitewashed sepulchres or tombs. And then we got the infamous Church of England and the founding fathers of all these churches. And then they do is they translate it into Latin, a dead language, so that the people wouldn't know. You leave an opening for Satan to step in, he'll crawl through the cracks to get in. But these guys were throwing doors open wide for him. It's no wonder there's all the divisions that were going on. People were actually arrested and killed for translating the Bible into common languages. They didn't want to lose their little hold on the people. And a lot of what we have in the way of Bible and words and things like that come from the Latin. Rapture comes from the Latin. Omni comes from the Latin. There's a lot of other words. I've covered this before. So, read. So what we're going to do is I'm going to read out of three separate books, just for common education. We'll start with the Bible. You always want to start with that. But you only have to read the Bible, 15 to 30 minutes a day. You don't have to sit there and go cover to cover. You can get a reading plan if you go out and look on them and say Bible reading plan for the year. You start in Genesis, and within the year you'll be able to read the entire Bible, one into the other, following this guide. Yeah, some of it's like reading the phone book. Other parts of it have all the stories that you're familiar with. You can see where they come from. It's just a light rain. I could probably go out in that and work. It's that light. Okay, so we're going to start in Matthew 5. I'm picking sort of standalone speeches. So we're going to start with Matthew 5:1, the Beatitudes. And seeing the multitudes, he went up into the mountain, and he was set. His disciples came unto him. So they always leave him by himself because he has to go in, have his quiet time, pray, talk to God, and then, bring everybody in. You come up first and you bring everybody in. What's amazing, the people that in the movies have always shown Jesus as Marvin Milquetoast. He couldn't even handle regular bread unless he dipped it in milk. That's what that phrase means if you're not old enough to remember. Just a wimpy guy. No. He had to be able to hold an audience of 5,000. Look at what 5,000 people look like. Now, stadiums nowadays hold 30, 40, 50, 100,000, whatever they put in the stadium. But early stadiums held like 5,000. So imagine the old ball fields or whatever, and 5,000 people, and you've got to talk to them. You don't talk to them like this. God wants you to be happy. You've got to talk to them with, some power behind your voice. It's the difference in a movie close-up where you can talk like that, and a theatrical close-up where you've got to project yourself. And they had auditoriums with seating for people to come up and project. They might be comedians. They might be other types of acts. They went to concerts back then. So the Beatitudes, Matthew 5:2, and he opens his mouth and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, so they shall inherit the earth. The meek doesn't mean weak. It just means ones that are not in your face. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst for righteousness. Do you hunger and thirst for righteousness? For they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, so they shall obtain mercy. We tend to get what we dish out. The world calls it karma, and it usually has a negative connotation, but it also goes to positive. if you're constantly helping people, if you're merciful to people, if you're non-judgmental of people, you will tend to get that back. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. We're all going to be standing before God, so I guess we're all pure at heart, Christians. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Even Jesus suffered for his beliefs. Blessed are you when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. You see him attacking churches and preachers. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven. For so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. So there's a standalone speech by Jesus. In itself, you could just take that and put it in a small pamphlet and hand it out. Okay, for your reading pleasure, The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood, and looked down as one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other, as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for the passing there, had warned them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay, in leaves no step had trodden back. Oh, I kept first another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way. I doubted it should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. There are great writers out there, great writers. And you don't have to sit there and say, I can't read anything but the Bible. Read the Bible and then explore. My dad was a reader. Now, he's an outdoor person. He's ridden horses and done all kinds of stuff. He wasn't a cowboy, but they used to hunt all the time, and they used whatever means to get there. So he used to love to read. I guess it's Louis L'Amour, the Western writer. He'd have a stack of books, the little paperback books. He'd sit down. Now, he could read fast. He could read them in just, 2 or 3 days, and he'd be done with the book. Not reading all day long, of course. Me, that might take me a month to read one of those. I don't picture in my mind what's on the paper. When I read you both of these collection of verses, I didn't get a picture in my mind. I heard the words, and the words resonated, but I didn't get a picture. I'm not graphically oriented. In computer terms, I have a DOS brain. Now, DOS is extremely fast if you don't have to draw pictures. Now, if you like King James, then I highly recommend looking into Shakespeare. He kind of writes in that King's English, sort of. Not exactly, but close. He's got the words that aren't quite easily spoken, as I struggle with King James often. So we're going to look at, this is a soliloquy, which is basically the lead actor turns to the audience and gives his oration. And there are ones out there that would be to be or not to be. That is the question, whether to Nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against the sea of trouble, and on and on. He's talking to the audience. Original Shakespeare was in the round. The stage was round and jutted out into the audience. So there was audience, except for the walkway in, all the way around it. So there'd be certain things that were designed to go to certain parts of the audience. The soliloquy would be typically forward, but he might turn, but he's turning away. His backs are to the other actors that would be on the stage. By William Shakespeare, spoken by Mark Antony. This is after after Caesar was stabbed in the back. Et tu, Brute? By his friend Brutus. Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. He's appealing to a hostile audience. This is a fantastic way. I associate this type of speaking to Trump, who's speaking to, a lot of times, a friendly audience, but he's also speaking to a hostile audience. And he can just wrap them around their little finger and then manipulate them. Or he can say something that makes them go absolutely crazy. I'll keep it clean. And in doing so, make them do something completely stupid, exposing their position. I also have trouble with this opening sequence. I'm sure you've heard this before, but the opening sequence, because of Jim Carrey and his Pet Detective. I don't know if it starts off with friends, but friends, rodents, quadrupeds, lend me your rears, as he bends over, fully clothed. I mean, he's just being a smart aleck. So I have, this almost wants to make me laugh because I think about that, because Jim Carrey is funny. Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. The evil that men do live after them. The good is often buried with their bones. Oft is the proper word, not often. Oft interred with their bones. See, this is the problem that I have with Shakespeare. I love to watch it. I don't want to act it. You mess up on one word and you've destroyed the entire thing. They will be yelling and booing at you. The good is often interred with their bones. So let it be with Caesar. He says, I didn't come here to praise Caesar. I just come to I'm doing the eulogy. I'm just here to talk about him. Now he starts off with, and somewhat, he knows the truth, but he's being sarcastic to a degree, and they don't know it. The noble Brutus has told you that Caesar was ambitious. If it was so, it was a grievous fault, and grievously has Caesar answered it. He's dead. Here under leave of Brutus and the rest, for Brutus is an honorable man. Keeps harping on that. And so are they all honorable men. See, he's not pointing fingers at the bad guys. He's calling them honorable men because he's got a hostile audience. But he's going to turn them. Come I to speak in Caesar's funeral. He was my friend, faithful and just to me. I'm going to tend to read more and try not to rely on my memory. I had to commit some of these to memory back in high school because I got extra credit. I thought I was stupid when it came to English. I wasn't stupid. I was just too shy to express myself. When I got into college, I found out I knew this material. I was still bashful, but not as bad. But Brutus says he was ambitious, and Brutus is an honorable man. He hath brought many captives home to Rome, whose ransoms did the general coffers fill. Go out on campaigns and come back with the loot, the booty. Did this in Caesar seem ambitious? Questioning now. When that the poor have cried, Caesar hath wept. So he cried for the poor. Ambition should be made of sterner stuff. Do we have a right definition here? Challenging it. Yet Brutus says he was ambitious, and Brutus is an honorable man. You all did see that on the Lupercal. I thrice presented him a kingly crown, which he did thrice refuse. Was this ambition? Yet Brutus says he was ambitious. And sure, he's an honorable man. I don't imagine the chuckles are in there. I just know what's happening here, and it's funny. I speak not to disprove what Brutus spoke, but here I am to speak what I do know, which is always expected of anybody. You all did love him once, and not without cause. What cause withholds you then to mourn for him? O judgment, thou art fled to brutish beasts. A little pun there. And men have lost their reason. Bear with me. My heart is in the coffin there with Caesar, and I must pause till it come back to me. An emotional plea. And it worked. Now, I used to be able to say this from memory, but I can't anymore. Even the other part that I said I can't remember. But there are many good stories in Shakespeare. I love The Merchant of Venice. It's a case where he's being charged with some flippant crime, no big deal. And the prosecution for their case wants a pound of flesh. And they could see that they're in a hostile court. The judge is kind of on their side. They're elites, they're rich. The merchant's just an average working class guy, and he's in trouble because they want a pound of flesh. And the defense attorney comes up with a brilliant idea. Surrender. Give them exactly what they want. So he approaches the bench and says, we realize that we have met our defeat. I'm not going to quote the words because I don't remember them, so I'm just paraphrasing. We agree they deserve their pound of flesh. They can't kill him, but they can have a pound of flesh. They all nod, they're happy. They think they've won. And they go, well, we want to give it to you right now while we're here, so we can go freely and not have to worry about this over our shoulders. These are a little bit more cruel times back then, so they were ready to take the pound of flesh. He goes, but you only get the flesh. You didn't ask for the blood. You can't have the blood. How do you get a pound of flesh without blood? You don't. So a very clever defensive ploy. And all these things remind me of the Bible. It says, don't worry about what you're going to say when you get into court. The Spirit will lead you. It also says to settle your cases before you get to court, because you may get a trumped up judge. We're seeing that today. Liberal judges going against Trump. It doesn't matter what the law is to them. They just want to interfere. And I hope they get disbarred and sent out of town on a rail with shame, because that's what they deserve. So anyhow, 3 examples of things that you could be reading. Now, I'm not going to do a reading day every day. I'm not LeVar Burton. But you can, on your own, pick stuff, things to read. There are good books and there are bad books. Do your best. Read a review. Go on Amazon. They have a bookstore on Amazon and other places. Go to your local bookstore. Or the library. There are a few libraries still open. Tell them what you're interested in, what your topics are that you like. Do you like science fiction? Do you like romance? Do you like drama? I love mysteries. I love Sherlock Holmes. I've read some of the Conan Doyle stories. The original Sherlock Holmes that we probably all remember with Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce, those were wartime propaganda versions, so they don't follow the script. Stop the hiccups. But the ones played by Jeremy Brett, word for word, the acting is so good, word for word. I'm following along, whatever the storyline is, the Blue Carbuncle or whatever it is, I'm reading right there, and it's word for word, yet he's acting that part out. Exceptional actor. And Jeremy Brett in Sherlock Holmes, if you know who I'm talking about, he's the young courting lad in My Fair Lady. As they're going along the street and he's jumping on the fence around, singing to her. That's Jeremy Brett. So multi-talented. I consider Jeremy Brett kind of a young, God, what's his name? He plays Wolverine. I don't store names in my head. This is a common name. I've acted with him. I've been in a scene with him. I can't think of his name. It'll come back to me. I'll probably drop it in the note down here. But in any case, he's done My Fair Lady. He's done Les Miserables. He's done Wolverine. He's done a lot of different. The Greatest Showman. So he's done a lot. Talented. Some of these people are extremely talented. And they don't do trash. Some of the actors have, over the time, because they've acted forever, done good films and bad films. They got to make enough money to eat, Early on, they didn't make a lot of money. You'd be surprised to find out how little money some of these people got. So, anyhow, read. It will strengthen the gray matter. There's a muscle between your ears that you have to exercise, just like you exercise any other muscle in your body. Now, you don't have to go lift weights. You don't have to read 14 novels a night. Just keep it working. And you'll be better for it. And God will have more tools to work with. Till we meet in the clouds, God bless.